Today, we are joined by Georgie Murphy, who has a Master's in Nutrition from King's College, is a fully registered London-based nutritionist and founder of Glow Nutrition. She currently runs her private practice, offering personalised consultations and nutrition plans, and was formerly head of nutrition at Vital. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's so exciting.
So to kick things off, why don't I just ask you how you ended up in this industry, what your journey was, like what drew you into the health and wellness space and specifically the nutrition side of things?
Yeah, so I suppose where did kind of my passion come from? Where did it all come from? Well, probably started at a very young age. So really growing up, and maybe I didn't know it so much at the time, but everything was kind of cooked from scratch. There was always kind of fresh ingredients. There was always kind of a smell of cooking, baking in my household. So kind of my earliest memories are, standing on a stool at the kitchen counter with my mom, mixing a bowl of some sort. So I suppose from a very early age, just the sense of, real whole foods was always present. I then started or kind of really wanted to get into medicine. So I always wanted to be a doctor. So I've always kind of had a fascination with the human body and health, and really both from a health perspective, but also a disease perspective. And after not getting into medicine, I decided to go down the route of biomedical science.
That was your undergrad, right?
Exactly, yeah. My undergraduate degree, which I did in Ireland. And
we had the same journey, by the way. I did biological sciences, then wanted to be a doctor, didn't get into the course, and then was like, okay, something else.
Exactly. And look, I'm a firm believer in that's how life works.
Yeah.
It guides you and leads you to different things. And look where we are now. So I did biomedical science, and I was lucky enough in my final year to do a thesis in the National Maternity Hospital in the dietetics department. And really, that's where kind of my passion and kind of where I found my calling, I suppose. Really seeing, I suppose, the power of nutrition in life. So that's how it all started, and kind of went from there.
So wait, and how, we'll come on to this more, but like, I bet the things now versus what was being practiced or advised inside of a National Health Service, then different?
Yeah, definitely different, definitely progressing. I think, look, dietetics is different to nutrition. They would
totally
work differently. But yeah, there's, the science and the evidence base has just evolved so much.
Yeah.
Even look in the gut health space, there's just so much happening, and there has been, and it continues to grow and flourish. So yeah, there's still a lot of fundamentals, but there's been a lot of new research which has changed and directed, public policies and also how we're advising people.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, which is, exactly.
Given what you do, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What's the motivation?
So what gets me out of bed in the morning? I think probably...
Not like an alarm clock.
Apart from the alarm clock, which I definitely need, is probably people and connections.
Okay.
So, the idea that what we do matters, I think, is really important to me. And how we act, what we do in a day. And that might be, just a smile to a stranger, or it might be, calling a friend, or it might be working with a client one-to-one on a nutritional plan that, really significantly impacts their health. So, people and connection, I think.
What exciting things are you seeing in the industry in general at the moment? Like we just touched on gut health, and obviously that's becoming a huge part of everything. Kind of what you're seeing in terms of changes and interesting progress.
So I think in terms of what's kind of interesting that I'm seeing in industry, I would say probably the 2 Ps. So personalized and preventative health. So, I think people are looking for different things nowadays. And, sadly, it probably took a pandemic to really, be the catalyst for that in some ways. But, I think more than ever, people are interested in the longer term health, the sustainable changes. I see a lot of clients coming to me, and, they're coming for symptoms that they've been dealing with for a long time. But overall, their wants are, how do I support my overall health in the long term? And I think personalized nutrition, I just think that's, we've all these general guidelines, which are fantastic, but they haven't been working for a lot of people. And I think, when you're working with individuals, we're complex beings. There's a lot going on. So twofold. And then I think what's interesting in the industry space, I think, is definitely gut health, like we talked about already. Just such interesting products being created, whether that's probiotic drinks or, different strains that are being assessed and then put into supplement form. So it's an interesting time to be involved.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's gone from people having an issue, i.e. a skin problem or a symptom, and then going to a doctor and saying, I need this fixed, to which, and we've talked about this with some of the other people on the panel, is this concept of going in and a doctor's like armory is quite focused around getting rid of the symptom as opposed to like, where's that coming from, just because of the way they're trained.
Exactly.
Nutrition is like this thing that's driving a lot of those problems.
Exactly. And look, we're all trained in slightly different ways. And there's a lot of, which has been lovely, a lot of doctors who are training in nutrition now and in functional medicine. So functional medicine is really about understanding the root cause of why a symptom is presenting in the body. And if we can really address that underlying root cause, then, we have a better chance of, long-term resolution. So yeah, I think it's an interesting time. And sorry, my brain's completely gone.
No, it wasn't really a question.
I was trying to get back to the end point of your question.
No, I think it was.
But yeah, you're right. I mean, a lot of, and on no fault of their own, a lot of doctors and our system, which is amazing in very acute acute care, acute cases. If I'm hit by a bus, I'm going to go straight to A&E. But, I think longer term and these niggling symptoms that people are dealing with, pretty chronically, we need to be looking at a deeper level.
I think it's that point if you've come back to the doctor 3 times for something that's, psoriasis, let's say, or something like that, and then it's starting to be more common. But you're right, it's just the system is not built. Nutrition isn't really a part of the training of doctors in the current setup. So it's exciting though that it's becoming. I just remember like a long time ago that you'd kind of get a bit of a, and again, doctors are the best. So
agree.
But it would be a kind of thing like, okay, you could try and change your diet, but like, it's just maybe. But also, here's what I would do if, and it's not in the toolkit.
And I think what's lovely now is like, there's a lot more openness from both directions to really actually, we all have the same purpose. Like we all want patients, clients to get better. Yeah. I mean, that's the goal. So it's lovely to be now working with various doctors who are, open to that and open to how do we collaborate? How do we work together?
Yeah. Couple of things that you're proud of in your career, moments that have like really defined where you're at or just made you ultimately feel very good about the path you've chosen.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lovely question. So I think really probably setting up my own private practice. Yeah. I've wanted to do that for a long time.
How's that?
And, you run a business, you know what that's like. You find it
super chilled and really easy. Everything flows.
Overnight. You do it overnight. So probably what I'm most proud of is setting up my own private practice. It's been a roller coaster for sure, but every day is different. So much variety, meeting different people, and seeing real change with clients. I've always wanted to work one-to-one with people. So that there's nothing better than that feeling.
Totally. So wait, let's talk about the practice, where it is, how you're set up, how the process of setting up. I think that's another part that's really interesting, I think, for everyone, is that there's this whole world of doctors historically, right, have been the medical professionals and that we go to, but there's a system that ultimately they walk through. Whereas today you have to be an entrepreneur to make space for yourself in this new world that's evolving. So
Completely.
Great to hear about what were you doing just before, and then how did that come about, and where are you now with Form? Yeah,
so I suppose I launched my private practice about 1.5 years ago. So that's been, I suppose I studied. I did my master's in nutrition, and then I did a diploma in nutritional therapy. So really focusing on that more kind of naturopathic functional medicine approach with that degree. And I kind of came out of it being like, amazing, I'll just start seeing clients one-to-one. This is going to be so easy. But I suppose what I maybe underestimated quite a lot was having that entrepreneurial business side, or, that whole side of it. So that's been a huge learning curve, because, I'm like, I could just spend all my time one-to-one with clients, but actually there's so much to know and do on the business side of things. So
Tax, I discovered about, VAT, I heard about that a good 6 months after I should have done.
Exactly, registering your business,
Classic.
building a website, how to use social media, how to do your branding, how to do marketing, everything under the sun.
And just doing that all on your own?
Pretty much at the moment, all on my own. I mean, I say that, but I've had, a great network of people who have been able to advise and guide and give me some really, really sound advice. And, my poor family have had to, stand there, and I'm sure, be my biggest cheerleader. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but I've kind of worked, alongside that, which is, I think, been really beneficial just to get those skills from, whether it's been a startup that I worked at or I was working for Bupa doing clinical research. So kind of alongside a lot of my studying, I was also working, which I think helped. I think that helps to, just give that extra support.
So at Glow,
yes,
clients, how many people are you seeing, positive outcomes, what's going on?
Yeah, so in terms of my client base, it's really varied, which I love. So the age range, is anywhere from 24 to 60 plus.
Wow.
So I see a huge range of clients, and both male and female. I see clients in the UK, I see clients in Ireland, I see clients in the States. So, it's really broad, and that brings its own level of complexity because the food systems are different.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much the UK and Ireland, although there is still differences, but the US is very different.
How so?
They're, in terms of what they're allowed to put into the foods, what they're allowed to feed the animals, it's the regulations are quite different. Yeah. So antibiotic use, hormone use in terms of animal feed is a lot higher in the US.
Yeah.
Additives.
Yeah, food colorings. We were just looking
exactly.
at a nutrition supplement business that some friends sent to us, and we were like, "Oh my god, these are basically banned colorings."
Well,
that
they are.
Can't have here.
The EU, I think, and the UK, I think we underestimate just how much protection we have in the food system. It's really amazing. Versus, I lived in the States for 3 years, and I had a lot of good issues when I lived there. And I think that is a common theme also for some clients that I see. And I just think, there's a lot more foods that we can react to because there's just more stuff in it that our bodies are like,
The list is long, and therefore even trying to figure out what it might be that's causing
exactly.
it.
And, our bodies aren't designed to break down chemicals. They're designed to break down food. So, anyway, that's probably a whole other topic of conversation. But yeah, so a lot of variety. I do see a lot in the gut health space. And I think, it's an interesting time. I think.
How does someone, sorry to interrupt, but how does someone, so when, a client comes to you, when they're talking about gut health, are they saying I have discomfort, or are they saying I have an issue, and you're then able to zone in on this is probably connected to your, gut biome, or how does that journey happen for the average person, or the person comes to see you?
Yeah, so usually I'd have a kind of, a quick 15-minute call with a client, and they'll tell me some insights into what's going on. They might be suffering from, irritable bowel syndrome, an umbrella term for lots of different digestive issues. They might have abdominal pain, they might have chronic diarrhea, they might have bloating, constipation, symptoms that just really haven't resolved and they've been dealing with. And, maybe someone in their family said, their partner said, I think it's time you go look at that. It could be, Crohn's, it could be, irritable bowel disease, which is different. But, it could be one of those symptoms, and then it's just gotten to a point. Or it might be, they have recurring skin issues. So, chronic psoriasis or eczema. And it doesn't, everyone's level or threshold's different, For some people, it might have only been going on a couple of months, but, it's significantly impacting their life that they, want to come. And then for other people, they might be dealing with this for 10 or 15 years. Yeah. So, everyone has different thresholds. So how it works is I would do take an intake form and a 7-day food diary. So the intake form will look at all the different systems in the body, and it will ask for various different symptoms. And then we might pair that with some testing. So we might do some stool testing to look inside the gut, look at levels of inflammation, look at the microbiome, etc., or some, in-depth blood testing. And so then I'm able to create as big a picture as possible in terms of, what might be going on, what systems are interconnected, to really understand, which systems need to be supported most. But I suppose invariably more and more nowadays what I'm seeing is, a level of gut involvement in a lot, if not most cases.
Yeah.
So, because so many things are impacted, our gut's impacted by so many different factors.
And then impact in turn, it's linked now to
everything.
Alzheimer's, dementia,
exactly.
these long-term.
Everything from brain function, like the level of evidence that we're uncovering nowadays is just fascinating in terms of what those microbes are doing. We have 3 trillion bacteria in our gut.
25% of us is bacteria or something.
We're actually more bacteria than we are human cells. So, it's fascinating time to be focusing on it. So yeah, it's hard not to look at the gut for a lot of symptoms that you see.
Well, it turns out we're basically symbiotic, right, with bacteria, whereas before we thought, okay, they're just hanging around. It's part of being a human. There will be bacteria. But it turns out this is actually evolutionary symbiosis kind of.
Exactly. And it's a lovely time to be, people and physicians and clinicians are appreciating that just more and more. So it's, things can change really quickly for some people. You can make some what might seem like simple or small changes that can significantly impact their gut in a matter of days. And then for some people, it can take months. So it's very dependent. But usually in terms of gut restoration, it can be up to 3 months really for kind of, if there's kind of significant issues going on.
But ultimately, then clearly diet is one of the first places that you're looking at, because that is obviously what is going into your gut and what you can do to, in some ways, create outcomes, or in lots of ways, create outcomes of change.
Exactly. And what I think is so fascinating and kind of why I'm so passionate about nutrition is there's really no habit in our day that we do more often than eat. Yeah. If you think about it, we have a real opportunity to change what's going on within our body. And food really is medicine. The gut is really a gateway to so many things. Hippocrates, thousands and thousands of years ago, said all disease starts in the gut. So, it's really important that we are focusing on nutrition.
Smart people. We should have listened a long time ago.
We should have listened a long time ago.
Okay, what does a typical day look like for you?
A typical day for me...
In a working sense, just life.
Completely, in a working sense. Always starts, my morning routine is really important to me. I'm really kind of protective of it.
This is a theme, by the morning routine. No, of people who are in the health and wellness spaces, their mornings is starting to become the pillar foundation upon which they build a good day. We need to talk about this.
But it's I can see it in myself night and day versus when I have my routine versus when I don't have time for my routine. So, I'm really trying to be protective of that. But kind of in brief, I suppose it's, journaling. I try and do 3 pages. I read a fantastic book by Julia Cameron, all about kind of creativity. But the 3 pages in the morning, I try and write, and that's just to get all the junk out of my head, clear my head. Now I'm focused on the day. 15 minutes of sunlight. So I always try walk around the common, even if it is just literally walking to the end of the road and back, just trying to get some sunlight on my face. That's really important for, our circadian rhythm, how our immune system is functioning, so benefiting our hormones, benefiting our energy levels, benefiting our mood, and our stress response. So 15 minutes of sunlight, definitely. Some form of exercise, that could be that walk, it could be a run, it could be 30 minutes of yoga. I'm a big believer in yoga and a big lover of practicing yoga. So that's kind of my first kind of hour and a half, which is I always try and make my time for. Then I'll, have my coffee. I love my coffee, but try and wait an hour after waking, because when we wake up, what wakes us up is our cortisol. It's actually our stress hormone. And if we're dumping coffee straight into our system first thing in the morning, it's quite aggressive. It kind of
disrupts that
exactly.
process.
It disrupts that natural process, and can be too kind of aggressive on the system. So waiting about an hour, I like coconut oil in my coffee. Really good for your brain, really good for metabolism. And then I start into kind of a full-on day of variety of things. So it's mainly client focused, so one-to-one consultations. So I do initials and then I do 30-minute follow-ups every week after that. So I'm really kind of checking in with clients. And, writing for events, writing for, putting presentations together, networking, there's a huge aspect of that. I write for an evidence review board, so it might be some, research and writing, and CPD, so continued professional development. So much out there in terms of the networks that I'm in terms of webinars and just learning from all these amazing people around the world.
Well, there's so much going on. It's
yeah, and you need to stay, you need to stay up to date with that, really. You know, there's...
Well, you're in such a fast evolving space. I mean, it's all evolving, but like this particularly
I think the gut particularly, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, for a lot of variety.
It's awesome. Yeah. I think the morning routine sounds incredible.
Yeah, I would recommend it.
How
to
long
anyone.
have you been doing journaling?
Probably the last maybe 4 months.
Okay.
Yeah. And
I've felt very good.
Yeah, definitely noticed a difference.
Wow.
Definitely. It just kind of, I don't know about anyone else, but I kind of wake up with thoughts.
Sure.
So just to get it out of my head, and then, you know, it's the concept, and I'm probably going into too much detail here, but the idea isn't to write anything really of value. It's literally like some of my sentences don't even make any sense. It's just brain dump.
Wow.
It's just getting the thoughts out of your head. So
I think we need to review my morning routine.
It's a nice place to start, and it doesn't have to be every day. You know, it's not to stress ourselves out. Just do what we can.
Yeah, it's not I should always do it.
Exactly.
The word should is a big thing for me. Internally, we become very reliant on like, well, I should go to the gym. And then if you go to the gym, like you go, well, I should have gone, so I don't give myself any credit for it anyway.
Exactly.
And if you don't go, you just spend your evening going, I should have gone to the gym.
Yeah, no, completely.
Okay, stress in your life and how do you deal with it? It's obviously such a common thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like you manage it well? Do you feel like actually, you know, I'm sure starting a business is a fairly stressful part of life.
As you know, so yeah, stress in my life. So look, I think stress isn't all bad. I think, you know, we need a certain level of stress to be motivated. Starting up a business, you need a certain level of stress. It's what gets us out of bed literally in the morning. I think the reality is nowadays there's just so many stressors. You know, it can be psychological stress, which then activates parts of the brain, which then triggers your cortisol to be released, et cetera, whole cascade. But there's also lots of other physical stressors in our environment. So we're talking about air pollution, we're talking about artificial lights, we're talking about high intensity or you know, really long exercise routines, poor diet. So high sugar is a stressor on the body, alcohol, high amounts of caffeine, etc. So I think the reality is we kind of have it coming from all directions. So our poor bodies are like, you know, how do I deal with all this? So I think it's about trying, and this is what I like about working with clients, is trying to, you know, reduce some of those stressors in the body and create more balance. In terms of my own kind of personal relationship with stress, I'm a perfectionist, which, you know, I think the older I'm getting, I'm trying to actually just accept that more and just be appreciative of that side of my character. But I do have to be really careful with that. And something like yoga and meditation for me are big aspects of my daily routine. So I was lucky enough to be trained in transcendental meditation as a child, which I thought was hilarious at the time.
Yeah, that would have been extremely unique and rare.
So rare. I mean, my mom's amazing. But it was just funny, and I didn't use it for years. But now I have such an appreciation for it. And
also, how ahead of the time was your mum? And
I know.
Like the whole world is like now waking up to that entire
completely
universe. Well, certainly the Western world, or at least like everyone around us.
And you know, she was lucky to, you know, be introduced to that and fall into that, and uses it quite a lot as well. But so 20 minutes totally refreshes me.
Nice.
Yeah, they say it's twice as deep sleep.
Wow. Wim Hof is the way I got through the breathing thing.
Nice.
Literally saved me from
work.
like the worst horror time. Yeah, it's just a way of forcing. To me, it was because I don't know how to meditate properly, or at least the trying to notionally the trying to settle your mind when it just won't stop. Whereas actually for me, Wim Hof was good because it was like, just follow the steps and it will force cortisol and adrenaline, you know, to slow that production, slow down your body to just react. So it's kind of like, do 100 press ups, just do that and it will have a result. So that was helpful for me.
And that's the thing, you know, meditation isn't for everyone, but there's different ways now. And totally. I think we're more aware of that, just different ways to calm the nervous system.
Well, I was on this surf trip and met a girl who's writing a book on the fact that meditation is anything from brushing your hair to mowing the lawn to anything where you're doing often a repetitive task that just makes you focus on it, but doesn't put pressure for you to think too much. And actually finding those meditative things, whether it's painting, whether it's
completely
finding those things in your life are quite important. And they're often tasks that we already do that we go, oh, I really enjoyed that. But we don't think about it as a useful tool to help with all the other stuff.
So well said. It's so true. I'd love to read that book when
it's done.
But it's so true. Even listening to music, just that act in itself, going to some form of gig or something like that, there's so many different ways to do it, which is lovely.
Totally. Okay. What books are you reading at the moment, and things that anything you might recommend for like readers, listeners that are interested in this area to get into?
Yeah, so what books am I reading? I am a serial book reader.
Yeah.
So I have 4 books on the go at the moment.
Oh, yeah? Okay, so always just bouncing.
Always, which I don't know if that's a good or bad sign about my character. As well. But yeah, I just, it depends what mood I'm in. I like to have nonfiction and fiction. I definitely love a science-based book. So in terms of the science, nutrition-based books, Drop Acid by Dr. Paul Mutter. It's about not psychedelics in any form, but it's about the science of uric acid in the body, which is a compound kind of originally thought just as a waste compound.
That's what we excrete in like sweat and
exactly and urine. Yeah, exactly. So that's his work is amazing. Dr. Pearl Mutter, if he's an American physician, to follow him, I would definitely recommend. Also. Dr. Mark Hyman, another American functional medicine doctor and doctor as well. His book, Food, WTF Should We Eat?
Oh, I know that.
Yeah, that's just a really good, I think, kind of manual as such.
Approachable way to like think about it.
And, he divides it into the different categories of foods. And I think it's just a good supplement to anyone's kind of nutritional journey. In terms of kind of more fun fictional stuff, Lessons in Chemistry. Okay. I think it's by Bonnie Garmus. It's set in the 60s. It's about a kind of unconventional female scientist who's kind of going up against really kind of sexism in work and life and the journey that the struggle of women really in terms of career and the family life and everything like that. It's a really, really funny, well-written book. So awesome. I definitely recommend that. Nice. And then I do like a little bit of philosophy, so like Alan de Botton.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
School of Life. So yeah, bit of a mix.
I like that. Yeah. And 4 books at a time, which is, but I agree with you on the mood, right? It's a weird concept that every time you open a book that you'd read the same like genre. Just like in TV, sometimes you're in the mood for something, a drama, and sometimes you're in the mood for a documentary. Like
exactly. And one more book I would definitely recommend in terms of like the wellness, happiness space is Solve for Happy by Mo Gaudat.
Okay.
It's an amazing book. And he has a podcast and he's just an incredible speaker as well. So I definitely recommend that.
Nice. Solve for Happy.
Yeah.
Okay. Number 1 piece of advice for people who are trying to approach like their physical health, like... That's a big question,
it's a
by
big
the way,
question.
because
Number
we're all different.
1.
I know. Or like, where would you start if someone's like on that journey of like, hey, I'm looking to I feel less than my best.
Yeah.
How would you approach that?
I think number 1 piece of advice for people in terms of their health is trust your gut.
Nice.
I think it's really important though, because I think, a lot of the times, the body is presenting these symptoms and really they're kind of messages from the body telling us, this thing isn't right, et cetera, et cetera. So I think trusting your gut in the sense of, going to getting something investigated or starting on a journey of health, but also trusting it in terms of, what you're doing and also putting into your body. I think a lot of us probably know that this food, processed junk food isn't good for us. So, just kind of becoming more, I suppose, intuitive and more kind of connected to our bodies. Yeah. I think would be
nice.
A very broad piece of advice. I could go into 1,000,001
no, but there's so many avenues to go down.
But
I think it's about that, isn't it? Is saying like, if you're going to choose to have the thing that isn't good for you, it's just like monitoring that in yourself and thinking and
then just, making sure that the rest of the foundations of your diet and lifestyle, are good to then be able to offset when we're not so good, because that's life, isn't it?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. A little bit of balance.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously, like you're learning all the time. What lifestyle changes apart, I mean, you've got your early morning start, like your routine. What else have you changed in your life in terms of your approach to just happiness and health and well-being?
I think over the last couple of years, what I've really honed in on is really my own good health, and really, putting into practice a lot of what I'm preaching and telling clients to do, also on myself. So it's a lot of kind of gut healing kind of protocols, gut restoration, using a lot of foods such as bone broth, which is an incredibly kind of underused, I think, food. It just has so many nutrients in it, contains lots of amino acids, which are really good, support the gut lining, really nutrient dense. Using things like bitter foods, apple cider vinegar, stimulating, stomach acid and digestive enzyme release. And really pushing my own self to think about diversity and colour within my own diet. So I think just we can all become such creatures of habit. We get the same shop, we do the same thing week on week, but that is kind of disastrous for our gut. What we really need is, those 30 plant foods a week. We need colour, and it's not just about the gut, it's all the other functions of those phytonutrients in plants, which, support reduction of risk of numerous diseases, cancer, autoimmune diseases, cardiovascular, inflammation. So it's, I suppose, seeing plants really as that, as medicine, because that's really what they are. We use them for medicine actually in a medical profession. So it's really, even in my own sense, just pushing myself to increase all of that diversity within my own diet. And, I know the benefits and I've seen the benefits. So, and then I think on the other side of it, really pushing myself to increase my own protein and fat intake. I think we've lived in a very fat phobic world for a long time.
Yeah,
so this huge fear of fats. And, a lot of that has been, steeped in, guidelines that we were told around correlations and, this messaging around fat and what it does in the body. And I think a lot of that has been quite detrimental to our health overall. It's really pushed, I think, society as a whole into a high carbohydrate, high sugar diet. And, if you actually unravel some of the funding of these things,
there's some dark backgrounds.
There's some dark backgrounds, exactly. And also, if you pick apart the evidence, the actual evidence itself isn't strong and has been cherry picked. And, it's not all, we won't maybe go into all that detail.
But it's not all conspiracy, but there's also just
exactly.
moments in time where a single report can suddenly get blown into the public domain, and suddenly everyone's looking at that, and that becomes like a truth versus there's no, the general public at large have no background to the context of how that study was done or...
Exactly. And I think, it's an interesting time because a lot of that's changing and things like that. But, fat intake is so important, male and females, particularly for women as well in terms of hormone production and, everything from your skin to how your brain's functioning. Our brain needs fats. So our nervous system needs fats. So that's also been an interesting aspect. And then I think protein is just an underrated macronutrient in some ways. A lot of us probably aren't getting enough in our diet.
Yeah.
And, we're all exercising a lot and we're very active human beings. And, in terms of longevity, our muscle mass is so important to our health. So that's been interesting to just change these things up.
Nice. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you here to talk to us, and we're so excited to have you on board with Press and our panel of experts. So we look forward to having many more talks with you, getting you involved in panels, and in general, using your counsel for us to help develop great products and programs, and just overall keep us on the right path. So thank you so much for the time today.
Great, thank you, Ed. I'm so excited for the months ahead, years ahead, and it was great to talk today.
Thank you.